it to the outside. He can't get there. Kevin King is going to win the Barbizzo FTF Cup Series.
Into the lead. Bud gets wrecked in front of the pack. He saves it. 3-4 wide as they come to the white flag.
Here comes Vargas down on the apron. They are 5 wide. Ian Plash will win it at the line. Is this package? Oh, there goes Jordan Lopez Jr. That's your race leader. Caution flag is out.
Still no one willing to give up as they're going to be dead even off of the first chicane.
Oh, he saves it. What's going to happen here? Here comes the canvas.
Get your front there.
He's got it. He's got it. Get there. No.
Canvas is going to win. One down and 7 to go. Drivers are headed to the Sin City to roll the dice on strategy. We've had 2 fantastic photo finishes in our last 2 races here. Tonight, we go for the three-peat. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to FTF.GG's coverage of race number 2 for round 1 of the 2023 eNASCAR Qualifying iRacing Series, live from the virtual Las Vegas Motor Speedway in Las Vegas, Nevada. Glad to have you with us here on FTF. Jacob Pitts, James Pike with you. Justin Melillo is in the fan zone. He's our Larry McReynolds, whatever you want to call him. No Caleb tonight. He's on the IR, coming off some surgery. We'll see him in 2 weeks' time and wish him the best. James, a little bit of a curveball here tonight. The fact that we're at 1.5 miles with the trucks. Not the same track that we saw on Tuesday night in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. Usually we take a little bit of notes, I think, from Coke over to this. They're usually about similar distances. Instead, a flat 1 mile track on Tuesday night. Here, a fast banked 1.5 mile racetrack in the desert.
We do have the same number of laps tonight, 100 laps on Tuesday night, 100 laps this evening, but that's about where the comparisons end. Yes, Milwaukee is flat, the groove is narrow, especially in the corners. There's not a lot of room to work with. You can run 2 lanes here at Las Vegas, though, pretty consistently, and I'll admit, as we enter the 1.5 mile stretch of round 1 that makes up the bread and butter of the qualifying series, especially in the spring, I am very excited for this race because it seems like for whatever reason, the trucks always race incredibly well at Las Vegas, and we usually get a very good show, whether or not it's side-by-side racing on restarts. We've had fuel mileage races here in the past. Tire wear definitely matters a little bit. If you want a litmus test track for the trucks across maybe the whole of eNASCAR, this might be the first place that I would take them to.
No doubt about it. And we had that fuel mileage last year. Joseph running out of fuel just 5 feet short of the finish line, giving the win over to Thunhorst at the stripe. And we're pretty much seeing similar conditions as far as weather, starting in the evening, transferring under the lights. The sun goes down, the moon comes up. And we're going to see something, I think, pretty similar. We'll see if we go wire-to-wire caution-free like we did a year ago. I know we went into Daytona with high hopes as far as going caution-free, and it didn't turn out that way.
I'm just disappointed that you set yourself up for a great reference. Yes, the sun has gone down. The moon has come up. Tonight, we need to see who is going to leave with the cup and the victory in victory lane. But I'll stop with the cake references because it's time for you to lead us off on the starting grid, is it not?
I believe it is. We'll go the distance here of our starting grid. Daniel Botafuco is starting on pole tonight. He had a strong truck, 2 weeks ago at Daytona. Kenny Humpy to the outside, the 2015 eNASCAR champion. Seth the Merchant, Cody Terlindi line up in row number 2. Brian LaPrade, Zach Nichols in row 3. Joseph 2, so close. Last year, he lines up in the 7th position. Dominic Lukomsky on the outside. Michael Frisch, Kwame Scott, 2 FTF regulars, round out the top 10.
Logan Clampett, former eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series driver, starts at 11th. Alongside him, the GOAT, four-time champion of the Coke Series, Ray Alfalla in 12th. Eric Royce, his house on Twitch, is 13th on the grid. 14th this evening is Agnell Phillip. Alex McCollum, the short track ace, starts 15th. 16th is where you'll find Boyd Hogan. Brian Mercurio starts 17th, trying to work his way back into the Coke Series after taking part in it a year ago. Andrew Navarro was strong in the qualifying series in both rounds 1 and 2 last year. He starts 18th. Kenny Brady and Blaze Crawford round out the top 20 of our starting grid for tonight's race at Las Vegas.
Looking down through the rest of the field, 35 trucks in store. Drew Freinage there in row 11. Dalton Collins to the outside. Christopher Peffer, and that is a fat number 1 for Brad Maher there in row number 12. Kyle Dragon and James Holzer in row 13. Larry Pace, Eugene Mozganov in row 14. Steele Langford, Joel Smith round out our top 30, and the final 5. We'll turn the page. Clayton Hoffman, Chris Wilhite, Casey Tucker, Marcus Ruckman, and Jake Nichols rounding out the field of 35. Before we get things rolling, let's check in downstairs with the crew chief, Justin Melillo.
Thanks, Jacob. Hey, everybody. Excited to be back here for another week of eNASCAR qualifying iRacing series action here at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. We might be seeing ourselves a bit of a pack race at the beginning until things start to wind out here as they are going out for the pace laps now. I'm looking through this field. It's another stacked field, just like it was a couple weeks ago at Daytona. We've got 2 eNASCAR champions in the field tonight. I'm definitely keeping my eye on Ray Alfalla and Kenny Humpy. Want to see what they are able to do. Pit strategy could be important. I was testing around earlier. I found it to be about 45 laps you could go on fuel. This is a 100-lap race, so we're going to have to see how it all plays out.
That we will. Field is getting set to go. Take a look at the track facts here of Las Vegas Motor Speedway. 1.5 miles. There you see the weather. The track and air temp pretty cool. It's late in the day, 69 degrees. The air temp and the track temp, humidity 17%. Winds out of the northwest, 10 mile an hour, clear skies. Your track temp turns all the turns around the racetrack. Bank the same, 20 degrees. This track opened in 96, renovated for 2007, was a flat track before. Added the banking for the 2007 season. It's been that way since. The tri-oval, 12 degrees on the front straightaway, the back straightaway, 9 degrees. 3 sets of tires in the pits. 100 laps in store. Daniel Bonafuco leads us down. We are racing in Las Vegas. Daniel Bonafuco leads the opening lap here from Las Vegas. First truck to the outside line. That belongs right now to truck number 29. That's Kenny Humpy, who is stuck up on the outside. The goal right now for these drivers, get to the bottom as quick as you can.
You'd like to get to the bottom early, but that second lane is going to come in and rubber up and be viable at some point in this race. We don't quite know yet, but there are too many trucks that race side by side here because you have enough room to do it to where that top lane doesn't stay useless and isn't that disadvantage for forever. So yes, now you want to be on the bottom, but give it 20 or 30 laps. I think we'll start seeing more trucks willing to go up there. It's also a place where you can change how your tires wear out if we get a long green flag run as well. So drivers may take advantage of going to the second lane to change up the way their rubber wears out too.
Logan Clampett now the first truck to the outside line. Kenny Humpy was able to get to the bottom. He's right in front of these two cars, and you can see double file through the rest of this main pack from around Clampett and Joseph side by side on back. Your top 5 single file sort of just right around the bottom of the racetrack. They at least come up toward the wall on the back straightaway, but the leaders are running a good lane off the outside safer barrier there.
I think it's also worth noting that, especially right off of restarts and in the early part of this race, draft does matter. These trucks punch such a big hole through the air that there are elements of super speedway drafting, like we saw at Daytona 2 weeks ago, that do play into things a little bit. And the toughest thing here, I think, is making sure that you maintain your momentum, especially on corner exit. You do have to lift a little bit, but the less time you can stay off throttle, the better, because it's so hard to regain momentum when you reapply the gas pedal and get back on the accelerator. You want to try and keep this motor wound up because it doesn't really peak at a high RPM. It's only about 6,000 or 7,000 RPMs that you get when these Ilmor engines are running at full song, compared to the 8,000 or the 9,000 RPMs that we see in the Cup Series and in Class A racing and even in Class B racing. So all things that these drivers will take into consideration early on in tonight's event.
Let's check in, if we can, right now with driver number 3, your winner from Daytona 2 weeks ago. That's Larry Pace. Did not have a stellar qualifying run, starting 27th. And he's back here in the thick of it, currently in the 24th position. Drew Freinage, Kyle Dragon, right around him right now, and he's trying to charge his way toward the front, but he has a wall of trucks in front of him to get by here.
Not too much movement amongst drivers throughout this field relative to their starting position. One name, though, that does stand out to me pretty quickly, and a driver that we know has tons of pace, Logan Clampett, who started in 11th, already up to 6th. Pace has gained 3 spots, but at least to my eye right now, Clampett plus 5 is the biggest gainer of this race so far.
That's what I have on my scoring right now, and the next closest is plus 3, and there are a couple toward the back of the field that have gained that many spots up to this point, and he started to get that outside line to roll now, as he's gotten side by side for the 5th spot with Humpy. I saw Brian LaPrade kind of peek out to the outside a lap or two ago, but he got right back in line toward the bottom of the racetrack, and he sits 3rd behind Seth the Merchant and in front of Cody Terlindi. But you're right, that too. Logan Clampett is on rails up on the outside. That Chevrolet Silverado trying to roll toward the front. As now the leader's starting to look to the outside, maybe trying to pull him around up on that outside a little bit.
That outside line that he's running, it reminds me a little bit of when, I think it was Contender at Homestead a year or two ago, when our good friend Blake McCandless was able to run the outside and gain a lot of track position early on, but he ended up giving up some tire life towards the end of the green flag run. So we'll have to watch and see whether or not the tires fall away from Logan Clampett's truck as this run progresses. But as we bring him up, a big shout out to Blake McCandless, who was recently announced this afternoon as one of the announcers in the booth for the Solid Rock Carriers Cars Tour in 2023. A huge opportunity for him. So big congratulations to all of us at FTFGG, to Blake and the team, and looking forward to watching him on Flow Racing on a lot of Saturday nights throughout the year.
I'm really looking forward to it. And he's got an event coming up that you'll see here on FTF. It's the California 550, which is, there was some contact there down the back straightaway. As soon as I looked away, saw smoke peek up, and it's Boyd Hogan that's sliding backward on the outside of the racetrack. We'll talk about the California 550 in a moment once things settle down. Is truck number 5, that Chevrolet, he'll fit in line right now, but he had himself a moment coming up off turn number 2, trying to get toward the front, and did not have enough room up there, and I believe he did just barely brush that outside wall.
Speaking of people on the outside, look at Ray Alfalo, the black and white truck there right at the top, just peeking in on the corner of your screen. You see him now pretty much dead center. He is way up on the fence, and whatever Logan Clampett is doing that is working, I think Alfalo is taking it to an even further extreme, because he's just hanging out up there. There's at least clean air on the nose, so that's a plus, but you're also running the longest distance around this racetrack, and I have to wonder how long that strategy will actually work out for Ray, and whether or not he'll just burn up his stuff up there, or if maybe he's conserving already, recognizing that he's not exactly in the best racing lines, and maybe just trying to save a little bit so he's got something for later on if we get a green flag run to start this race off.
I just wonder if his option right now is to go where they aren't. And that's the third line on the racetrack. It may work, it may not work, but right now he is going all the way up to the outside. Meanwhile, for second, Brian LaPrade to the outside of Seth the Merchant, had a huge run down the front straightaway. He'll go to the top and try and put that 17 truck into position number 2. He will easily move the Chevy right in behind Daniel Buttafuoco.
This battle for the lead now becomes so intriguing because these two drivers were the first two drivers that missed the cut to get into the Coach Series last year. They were just behind the cutoff in points in 2022. Brian LaPrade, I know, has something that he wants to prove, that he's still Coke-level caliber and wants to get back in that series. Daniel Buttafuoco trying to ride the wave of speed that North Force Racing in particular has built up in the past year. They got a lot of drivers into the Coach Series. Buttafuoco is one of the few that didn't quite make the cut, and I think he's got an equal point to prove that when you look at him compared to his teammates in the Coach Series, the Wyatt Tinsleys and the Derek Justices of the world, he wants to make a point to say that he's just as quick, just as fast, and is every bit as deserving of a place in the top level of the NASCAR as his teammates are.
One of the drivers that made the switch was in the eNASCAR Heat Pro League, made the switch to iRacing, and if you thought he was fast on Heat, he's even faster on iRacing. And even though he loses the race lead to Brian LaPrade, that's another speedy driver there in truck number 17. And they're just taking it easy right now. Not racing like it's the last lap. We're only on lap 17. A long way to go in this race.
How much do you want to push? How patient will you be? And is it worth it to save? And I wonder, just looking at timing and scoring, Zach Nichols is a name that immediately stands out to me. He's fallen off quite a few spots, -6 from where he started. But is he racing to a number? Is he racing to a particular pace? Is he looking after his equipment maybe a little bit more so than some of the drivers around him? Or is that truck just struggling for speed outright? I think it's too early to make that determination now, but it's something that I think we should be watching, especially over the course of the next 20 laps or so. If he's saving, that truck will begin to pass people a little bit later. If he just is really struggling for pace and just doesn't have a good setup underneath him and the car is struggling to handle well, we'll find that out in the next 20 laps too.
See a nice battle of trucks back here. How about some 3 wide action? Zach Nichols onto the apron, racing Kwame Scott and the 11 of Brian Mercurio. Mercurio in the Coke Series last year was part of the crew that got relegated through Contender back in November and December, trying to regroup and get back to the holy grail of the eNASCAR competition. And right now he's back in traffic, P12 right now. I'm sure he'd love to be closer toward the front, but there's still a long way to go.
Dr. Bob 41, a mainstay of FTF competition out of New Jersey, and in the mix with a few popular names there too. I see Eric Royce, his house on Twitch, who is just constantly streaming. Every time I log on and I just look at the iRacing category, I feel like I see him live. He's built up his following, his popularity, and now is taking his talents to Pro Series, and he's built his iRating up to where it's sort of a case of if you race enough, you get enough experience, you learn how to become quicker than most other people and justify your place here. And then Kwame Scott, young Kwame with a U, just like Kyle Larson's Young Money, one of the younger talents that's started to make a name for himself both on Twitch and on the service as well. Someone that I think we'll be watching for not just this season, but the next few to come. I expect Kwame Scott to be a mainstay here in the qualifying series, and if at some point in the next few seasons he makes it to the Coach Series, I would not be surprised in the slightest bit. He's so young, and I feel like he's got such more room to grow. Whether or not it happens this season, we'll see, but I trust he's got the ability to learn, and I get a lot of Donovan Strauss vibes from about 2020, 2021 about him, where it took Donnie a little bit to figure out how to be quick, but once he did, you saw what happened. He dominated Contender, made it to Coke easily. So keep an eye on Kwame Scott. It's a name I think we're going to be hearing for a long while on the oval side of iRacing.
No doubt about it. He has had some speed as of late, and he's trying to work that outside line and get toward the front. As I mentioned a little earlier, as we were talking about Blake McCandless, who is going to be part of the Cars Tour broadcast booth this season on Flow Racing. He's putting a race together already. It's next weekend. I didn't realize it was next week until earlier today. It's the California 550 benefiting Music City Drum Corps. Qualifying is on Tuesday. The race is on Wednesday, and you'll see it all here on FTF, and it's all part of a larger Underdog Fantasy series with the 1987 cars, where they're taking them to a couple different racetracks throughout the calendar year, and should be a fun time. And if you want to register, you should, because there is plenty of space available. So go to Blake Canlis' Twitter, Mr. F4 Speed on Twitter, and you'll be able to check it out, get involved, see some of the names involved, a couple of the provisionals. Guarantee you've heard of some of them, and it'll be a fun time here Tuesday and Wednesday. Qualifying at 7 on Tuesday. The race is at 8 Eastern here on FTF, and there's a lot of stuff coming up on FTF this week as well. Let's see. Well, why don't we talk about racing first? We'll talk about some of the stuff coming up later, because Kwame Scott, who we just talked about, out of control coming off turn number 2. He lost 4 or 5 spots there off the corner.
Starting to see that truck lose the rear end just a bit, so I suspect he's probably a little bit loose. I don't know if anyone else is sharing that sort of position with them and is sharing the same sort of struggle, but almost makes you wonder if he's tried to drive with the throttle on corner exit a little bit too much. That's something that can happen here deceptively easily at Las Vegas. It's not a place where you necessarily expect to try and rotate the rear end of the car with the throttle, but if you do it too much, you could burn off the rear tires and end up loose the same way Kwame just did. So something that these drivers will have to watch. Also, because I feel like we need to give him a little bit of love too, even though he's not necessarily involved in the services. We're going to talk about Blake on the Cars Tour. Also, big shout out to Eric Brennan, eBrennan45 on Twitter, for joining Blake in the booth. That's going to be one heck of a team for the Cars Tour in 2023. As I look through the rest of this field, Brian Mercurio, we talked about a little bit, making a good charge. Clampett is now up into the top 5. He's +5. Mercurio's +7, as is Kenny Brady. Andrew Navarro's up 5.
We've got one off pace here. That's gonna be, survey says, Eugene Mozganov.
Yeah.
I see. So this is a little bit of crowd control here. If we can get a replay, it starts with the 22. He gets turned by the 3 Larry Pace. Everybody checks up except for the 15. That's Marcus Ruckman, and he gets into the back of the 35 after the 35 gave a nice little boot to the back of the 34 and Chris Wilhite. So a little bit of packery there in turn number 3, trying to avoid the sideways 22 truck. Drew Freinage getting turned around off the bumper of the winner 2 weeks ago at Daytona, Larry Pace.
This is a tough break for Mozganov, because I think it's hard to really pin the blame on anyone there. If you want a classic racing deal accordion incident, that to me had the appearance of that, and it's unfortunate for him, but the reaction time here is so quick, and when you're traveling in excess of 165, 70, almost 80 miles an hour, when you get down to the end of these straightaways, it's difficult to have everybody check up in time to where someone doesn't pick up some damage like that. So hopefully Mozganov will get the opportunity to repair that truck a little bit and salvage something out of this day, but it's an unfortunate break for him for sure.
I'm seeing trucks out of control. Ray Alfala, his truck stepped out in turns 1 and 2. Kwame Scott got to the inside as a result. Look out, pits are open. Boyd Hogan's pitting. He about got killed as a result. Dalton Collins will join him, and that was sketchy trying to make it onto pit road. Boyd made the call at the last possible second. Crash! Back straight away! Look out, rest of the field! Cody Terlindi is the truck that's perpendicular to the rest of the pack. He had some contact, it looks like, with a couple of different trucks toward the top 10. Logan Clampett with some damage as well. First caution flag of the night is on lap 30. Here from Las Vegas, we'll get a replay. Cody Terlindi is really, I think, the victim in this crash, James.
Yeah, and it's going to be tough because it's two Ryko teammates that get together, and it was the man that almost won this race a year ago in the second split, Joseph, who got tight through the center of the corner and just came up into Turlindy, and then there was nowhere that Logan Clampett could have gone. Also of note, in the midst of all this, what a huge break for Boyd Hogan and Dalton Collins, who get to come in essentially for free and get the opportunity to nail the timing of their stop and be in good shape, I believe. And I was about to go, and we'll see, Justin, if we can't get Mr. Melillo in here in a little bit. But if you're stopping now, I guess we're going to see a lot of people stop now, but I guess how does this change pit strategy now that we've gotten the yellow? Because I imagine if you were stopping now under green, you were thinking this is a two-stop race. Do you think we see more drivers pivot to that two-stop strategy just with the way this yellow flag has fallen?
It's definitely going to be a two-stop strategy now. This is going to be the first one that we're going to see them again in 33 laps or so, probably. If anybody was thinking about doing the one-stop strategy, it's completely thrown out of the window now. Everybody's on the same strategy now for the rest of the race, unless we get a caution fest. We'll have to see.
That we will. We'll take a look at the race off the pit lane, and it is Briar LaPrade getting it done. He'll lead off Buttafuoco, Humpy, DeMerchant, and Frisch, your top five. For Hogan and for Collins, they don't get back on the lead lap quite yet. They'll be the wave arounds here, and we'll take care of that when we come back. It is Briar LaPrade, your leader. We're under caution for the first time at Las Vegas after 32 laps. We are back here on FTF. Dalton Collins and Boyd Hogan getting the wave around right now. Jacob Pitts, James Pike with you. Justin Melillo on the pit lane. Zach Johnson producing for us tonight. We are going to be a little over a third of the way home here from Las Vegas when we get the restart. 35 laps will be complete. We'll have roughly 65 to go from there, and we're looking at one more stop to get to the end of the race. So all sort of strategy as of now has gone out the window. We'll see if they decide to ride it out or if they get aggressive here on the restart.
I'll add an editorial note as well, and a mea culpa, because even I was mistaken. iRacing, when you come down pit road, you are counted within a caution relative to the rest of the field at the moment you cross the pit exit line. By the time Boyd Hogan and Dalton Collins crossed that line, the leaders had already come around to lap them. So that's why they got the wave around to the tail end of the lead lap and aren't leading this field right now.
Gotta love caution rules, don't you?
Make my brain soup.
Yeah. All right, here we go, getting ready for the restart. Brian LaPrade, the first car off of pit road, first truck rather, everybody taking 4 and fuel. Green flag, we're back to racing. Truck's diving onto the apron, but Botafuco one at the bottom. He's going to sneak in right in front of Kenny Humpy. Seth the Merchant going to be the first one, stuck up on the outside. Here comes Frisch to the inside as they motor their way off turn 2.
There are a lot of drivers that are going to be really glad that there isn't any live race control in here and that it's all handled by the sim, because I saw about 5 or 6 different lane changes before drivers hit the start-finish line. But now you see the prerogative of everybody here in the top 10. Unless you feel like you have some sort of run, you are going to the bottom and making it happen down there as soon as you can. You do not want to give up the inside lane if you can afford it. Meanwhile, we'll look at Zach Nichols in particular. We talked about how he had fallen back a little bit earlier. I'm curious to see if there were adjustments made to that truck or if he decides to push it a little bit harder, knowing that if you split this race in the middle, and to steal maybe a little bit of Justin Malillo's thunder, but if you're now cutting this race into 2, then you're stopping probably somewhere in the ballpark of right around lap 70-ish. Justin, I don't know if you want to confirm the specifics on that, but by my math, it's maybe 71 or 72 if you're splitting it almost perfectly halfway from that first pit stop.
I would say that if these guys are trying to do it halfway, they came in at 63 to go, so it would be around there, lap 69 or so.
Nice. Okay. Sorry, math wasn't that bad. Huh. Let the FTG or FTFTG viewership mark this moment as a moment in which I actually managed to do math somewhat correctly. These are moments that are few and far between. Moments that are not few and far between, though, at Vegas, thankfully. Battle for the lead, Botafuco to the inside of LaPrade. And look who he's bringing with them from Altus Esports. Seth the Merchant now on the charge to the bottom of LaPrade down the backstretch.
And Humpy makes the move to the outside here to try and help LaPrade. Nope, he drops back down to the bottom in front of Frisch. By the way, just want to note this, Joseph 2, who almost won a season ago here at Las Vegas, well, bad news. He got a black flag under caution, and he couldn't serve it until we went to green. So he topped off fuel before the caution, so he restarted last. He pitted. He is now 1 lap down, and he is in danger here of going 2 down. So he's going to need a caution relatively shortly here to get him back on the lead lap and have a chance of fighting for the win. Botafuco out in front, DeMerchant on the high side, Brian LaPrade back on the bottom side, as it is 2 by 2 from second all the way back to around maybe the 20th position or so.
Do you feel like the aggression level has picked up maybe just a hair? Because I haven't seen this many trucks willingly run that top lane and go too wide up until this point in the race hits. Am I off base in saying that?
I don't think you are. It definitely seems a little more 2 by 2 than it was at the start. More trucks using the apron for sure. Here comes LaPrade looking for the lead. Botafuco had to move up to the high side, even though he was barely clear of the 4 of Seth the Merchant, and move Brian LaPrade forcefully back out in front of the field. It definitely seems more racing now than it did before that caution came out. I wonder if it's maybe agreed upon by the drivers that we're just going to race it out here until we get into the window for pit stop.
It is the first time that I can think of in this race that we've seen someone duck down to the apron to make a pass that really carried some sort of value. LaPrade just pulled that off a lap ago. It is not the last time we're going to see it, as there's trouble a little bit further back in the field, and the yellow flag comes out. It's Kwame Scott that's gone around in 1 and 2 to bring out the second yellow flag of the evening on lap 43.
Freinage got a piece of this as well, and Kwame Scott got some help to turn that 31 Ford F-150 around. Had some contact in the back end with Alex McCullum, it looks like, in the 21. And we talked about Kwame Scott being fast, how good he can be. A lot of damage to the left side of his truck, a lot of damage to the right side of Freinage's truck. He slapped the outside safer barrier pretty hard. And you'll see the replay here with Kwame. Watch the 21 behind him. Just gives him a tap, pushes him around. He can't hold on. And then here comes Freinage. Has to go to the outside to miss it. Problem is that he winds up into the safer barrier. and has a lot of damage and probably now a parachute to the right side of the truck. Another angle.
He just wasn't ready to make that move in time. You see how late that was and how high he had to go relative to where he was on the racetrack. That was essentially 2 lanes he had to try and climb in the span of about maybe a second or so, and just really hard to make that move work that close to the incident. We'll get a good look here at the onboard. You'll see just a sudden jerk to the right there as he tries to go north of Kwame. But if you're that committed with that much momentum going towards the fence, it's really hard to turn it back to the left and not spin out. So I suppose there might be some aerodynamic damage. I'd almost be more worried about the suspension damage on Friedaj's truck at this rate.
No meatball flag yet. We do have some vehicles though heading to the pit lane. Justin?
Yeah, I saw a lot of guys that were looking like they were going to come in. They faked out. I don't think anybody fell for the fake up in the front, but around midfield, Kyle Dragon dragged about, I'd say, a third of the field onto pit road. They're pitting for tires. They do have 4 total sets in this race, so I mean, it's not out of the question. Plus, we are at that window where maybe somebody could save enough fuel. I don't know. We'll have to see what happens.
That we will. Thank you, Justin. This will it should get Joseph, I think, back onto the lead lap. Problem is he pitted with everybody, and he never got the free pass. So I don't know what the deal is here for truck 16. He is still scored 1 lap down right now. As Freinage gets down and away, Clampett is still sitting in the box. I believe he's repairing damage from the last accident. And he is down and away. Yeah, so Joseph pitted, and he's going to throw away his chance here at the Lucky Dog.
And so if you're any one of these drivers, you are hoping, A, for a yellow flag in the middle of this race, and then B, that we don't have a green-white checker, because, and Justin, you can check me on this as I'm right, I think 1 or 2 yellows, if you pitted now, would give you a shot to make it to lap 100 at least, but if we go further than that, it becomes a little bit dicey, no?
Nobody's making it from here, James. I can assure you that even if they tried to save as much as they can, nobody's making it from here. Add in 2 cautions, though, it is definitely plausible, but what about the tires? You got to think about that.
Right. And that's something where I think if you're trying to make it to the end now, it's got to be a full commit strategy, Jacob, where you are saving a little bit, you are hoping that you get cautions, you are done coming down pit road. It's extreme, but to be honest, if I'm running in 30th, I look at somebody like a Larry Pace in particular, where it doesn't seem like that truck has had a lot of speed. Seems like they missed the setup. What do you really have to lose by not going for some crazy wild strat, right? If you save and you get the few yellows in the right spot and you don't come down, maybe you have dead tires, but you get the track position. And even if you fall, 9, 10 spots, finishing in, 15th is still better than finishing in 28th. So maybe, perhaps.
Interesting to note here, Joseph got the free pass. He is back on the lead lap. He has to let Clampett and Freinage by here, as a couple of folks are back on the pit road to top off. Larry Pace is one of them. Kwame Scott, I believe he might be getting some damage fixed as well under this. Jake Nichols, nope, that was a couple laps ago. I think Cody Terlindi topped off. Joel Smith stopped as well. So Joseph back on the lead lap. Going to be at the tail end of the field, and he has to hurry to make it back to the leaders, because the leaders are halfway down the back straightaway, and he just got to turn 1. So he's got to pick up the pace here to catch the tail end of the field. Brian LaPrade is on your front row. Was in the Coke Series last year. Kenny Humpy, the 2015 eNASCAR champion, sits in position number 2. Botafuco, DeMerchant, Brady are top 5. Then it's Nichols, Frisch, Alfala, or you know him, Eric Royce, Christopher Peffer, your top 10. As here we go, getting ready for the restart. Green flag.
More lane changing before the start-finish line already. Humpy down to the inside to protect that lane from Botafuco, and then door to door to door to door to door. It seems like they actually dropped down to the bottom a little bit more there. Frisch got down to the inside. Alfala stuck up top. Pfeffer and Phillip. That's like a reverse rhyme, right? If they both start with the same sound. But they're door to door and bumper to bumper in 9th and 10th.
Here they come through 3 and 4. So far, it is so good. Right now, Michael P. Frisch getting eaten alive. DeMerchant will pass him up on the high side, as will Kenny Brady. And here comes some more. Zach Nichols up there. Ray Alfala up there. The two Chevys trying to power their way around. Frisch up on the high side.
How long can you make that work? How well can you survive with the truck up there? What will it do to tires? I still don't know if we have a definitive answer on how tires wear out. Maybe, just maybe, Kwame Scott might be the best indicator, though I'm not necessarily convinced that that wasn't his driving style as opposed to just running up there. So, and I don't know if we're going to get the chance to see that either, because you know these drivers are going to split this right around lap 70. So if this goes green, we should see pit stops in about 20-ish laps or so.
Chris Wilhite took a trip on the front straightaway. He got turned by Dalton Collins, but he saved it down the front straightaway. I don't know how in the world he hung on to that thing, but he did. He's off the pace now, back in the 30th position. He was running around the 20th position before there was contact. To go a little back and forth over the radio, but they keep their wits about him here. But Afuco trying to lead the outside line, and he has been passed here by Kenny Brady and by Kenny Humpy here behind Briar LaPrade for the lead.
Justin Malillo, you've been studying the tire wear a little bit more closely than we have from your spot in the crew chief spots. Have you noticed anything about how these tires have worn out over the course of the first half of this race? See if we can't get him back in a little bit. Meanwhile,
You stumped him.
I guess I am the Schwab, as it were, as Briar LaPrade continues to lead this race. And then look at this battle. Kenny Brady, 19th to 2nd in this race. We've not talked about him enough, given how fast that truck is. And I think this is a big season. If you look at Kenny Brady as a whole, he had a very turbulent 2022. Did not get the chance to compete in the Contender Series after running within the top 20 in points of the qualifying series at the end of the year, and took a lot of time to focus on rebuilding himself as a person and trying to process some personal growth in his world to come back and be not just a better driver, but a better human being. The pace, though, I think never went away. We're seeing that tonight. He is incredibly quick. Look at that move to the inside on Briar LaPrade to go get the race lead coming to lap 55. He's there. We'll see if he can complete the pass, but I think Kenny Brady has a lot to prove, fitting that he's got a very fast Chevy truck, much like a Kyle Busch that has something to prove. I think there are a lot of parallels between their 2023 campaigns, respectively.
Let's try it again here with Justin Malillo down on the pit lane as far as looking at tires and looking at lap times.
Apparently, I'm a rookie at ATVO and these programs here, but we got the push to talk working now. I was looking at those tires. I was looking at those times in the first stint. It was noticeable around the 15 to 20 lap range that the average pace started to drop off, and those guys started running. Everybody in the field started running lap times that were a little bit slower than the initial lap. So I'm going to look here for around lap, I'd say 70, for the times to start to fall off. If this race goes green, some of the guys in the back, I don't know if they're going to be able to hold on. That's my whole thing, because they might be able to make it on gas. I just don't know if the tires are going to be able to hold on.
Something interesting to keep in mind. Battle for the lead. Here comes Kenny Brady toward the front of the pack. A little loose there on that inside line. Side by side with Briar LaPrade. A lot of purple at the front of the field here, James.
purple and pink and blue and red, and it's a rainbow up here at the front of the field. But a lot of really fast trucks. I think the thing I'm watching for now between LaPrade and Brady in particular is to what degree LaPrade decides to pinch Brady on corner exit. You can take air off of the rear of these trucks and loosen somebody up. We saw that with Brady last lap. If you run that middle lane that LaPrade is in correctly, and I think we just saw it there, that Brady had to back out of things because he just didn't have enough room to carry momentum on corner exit, and it sticks him back in second. Now he could be in danger of losing third or second to Kenny Humpy down the front stretch. But something we'll want to watch as we get towards the closing stages of this race, if you're running that outside lane, I think the advantage as this race progresses may shift up top, and we're seeing that now. You look at the trucks from about 5th to 10th on, notice how a lot of them are starting to shift up towards the middle of the racetrack. They were pinned to the apron to start this race. Now that outside's rubbered in a little bit, they're starting to go up towards the wall.
Doesn't have anything to do with track temperature. That much I can tell you. The air temp has gone down a degree. It's down to 68. The track temp, it has gone up 72 degrees right now. And I think it's just because they're widening the amount of racetrack that they're using here from Las Vegas. Brian LaPrade out in front. Humpy now in second. Buttafuoco is in the third position. Kenny Brady falling back to fourth. And I think he may be onto something there. Maybe burned up his tires a little too much. And now is paying the price.
So then if you're Kenny Brady, how much can you hang on over the next 10 laps, and can you maintain track position enough to where come lap 70, you're not too far back as they cross the stripe? He's still got the fourth position now. He's just sort of tucked in behind Daniel Buttafuoco. But if you can maintain that and just hang on for the next 10 laps and not fall too far off, and then pit and get yourself sort of back on cycle with everybody else, that still is a huge net positive for Kenny Brady, who's up 15 spots from where he started that race, or started the race. That is the biggest gain of anyone in the field, even if he gets passed by Michael P. Frisch here down the front stretch and slides back to fifth. That's still a huge jump from where he started tonight.
And he was a big gainer 2 weeks ago at Daytona as well. Started 24th, finished 8th in our coverage. In 2 weeks' time, wasn't the biggest mover of the race. It actually belonged to Brian LaPrade, went from 27th to 3rd. But Brady still had a whale of a race 2 weeks ago at Daytona, trying to duplicate that here tonight. Sounds like we're going to have Boyd Hogan coming on to the pit lane. Yes, he will. Casey Tucker will join him. And it's just those two down onto the pit lane first to try and, well, maybe stump the field here. We're inside, 40 to go.
Justin Melillo, if you're pitting now, what do you think the strategy is for these drivers that have just come down pit road?
Honestly, I think it's an act of desperation here. Try to get out of the pack. They're not going to have the draft, though. That's the only problem. They're going to be losing time if they're not with other trucks. I don't really get the strategy at this point, but I guess we'll see what happens. It's going to be, if anything, they are a lap down. If they get a caution, they're kind of screwed. But I don't know. I don't get the strategy here.
Take a look at this, guys. Car number 21. He was part of that last caution toward the middle of the pack. And Alex McCullum is now in 4th. Looking to the outside here of Daniel Buttafuoco for 3rd. Fresh tires for truck 21 by about 13 laps, and he is charging his way toward the front of the pack.
He has made the most of those tires. Andrew Navarro's done a nice job as well. He's up to 13th in this race after starting in the 18th spot. But McCollum, a driver, a former Coke Series competitor, a driver who is best known for racing in the late model and the super late model and the all-new late model stock car coming in the Season 2 build of iRacing for 2023. I might be a little bit excited about that, just a hair. And I imagine Alex is as well, but trying to make his speed on short tracks translate to these big mile and a halves, and so far, so good. I think he's someone that, I think he's gotten the itch back for Coke Series racing after taking a few years and just going out and dominating the short tracks. You go to the hometown tracks of iRacing, and that is really where Alex McCollum shines, and that's what he loves the most. But I think there's a certain challenge and an appreciation that he has gotten from competing with Coke Series level competitors at these sorts of racetracks, and I think there's something in it for him to try and prove himself at this level too.
And I'm sure he loves the fact that there is a grand total of 2.5 short tracks on the eNASCAR qualifying iRacing series schedule. There's Bristol coming up here in the middle of April. There's IRP in August, that's in round 2, and then Bristol Dirt in September. That's it. There are no other short tracks on the schedule, but a lot of 1.5 and super speedways. Our next 2 races here, Atlanta, yes, the super speedway one, and then Texas. So we've got a lot of what is like plate racing here in these trucks going on throughout these next couple of races before we then head to Bristol. We shake it up a little bit more, Dover, Darlington, and then we end at yet another 1.5, May 25th at Charlotte.
Also worth noting that Christopher Pfeffer and Chris Wilhite just came down, and Justin Malillo just passed us a note as they came down pit road that last lap was the halfway lap on tires. If you were splitting the stops from that yellow around lap 30 or so and then stopping now to try and make it to the end, if you were going to equal the stints out on tires, you would have come in with Pfeffer and Wilhite, who are now scored in 34th and 35th, but are now good to go until the end.
Right, but I mean, the longer that the majority of the pack stays out, I mean, it does sound like we do have some pitters finally. Breyer just came over the radio. Kenny's coming over the radio now. Kenny Humpy, that is. So this is the pit stops now. This is when we're going to be getting the majority of the field in. Watch them. Here they come.
Don't speed. Don't speed. Don't wreck, but don't speed. Look at that. 18 on the outside. Daniel Botafuco passing trucks, getting onto pit lane. So far, so good. Everybody that has headed the pit lane here has not gotten a black flag, did not speed, and now they're 3 wide trying to get to their pit boxes here. And I think they're going to be okay, at least for now, as the last 2 drivers pull in to their stop. Seth DeMerchant, currently your race leader, and he's going to stay out while Zach Nichols will bring a bunch more down onto the pit lane. And these guys also do well as far as making it to pit road speed. No issues there from the rest of the pack.
And something we've not really talked about tonight, because all these pit stops have come under yellow up until now for the most part. This is one of the most difficult pit road entries in all of the NASCAR. It's not quite Dover, but you're still arcing into pit road and you're still turning as you come off the banking and come past the commitment line and then the timing line. So you have to not only manage the brakes, but make sure you don't lose the rear end and spin out. We've seen that many a time at Las Vegas. Looks like for the most part the field has managed to pit successfully. I haven't heard any pit road speeding penalties come through just yet, but something these drivers have to take into consideration here as we approach 30 laps, or rather 25 to go.
Seth DeMerchant stays out yet another lap, as Kenny Humpy just had himself a moment coming off of turn number 2. And when I tell you he wrecked, that thing was wrecked. 7 trucks around him, pointed 45 degrees to the inside wall, and he kept that thing pointed in the right direction. Kenny Humpy getting everything out of those tires. As now we've got trouble. Crash! Marcus Ruckman is around. So is Joseph. They're on the apron. We stay green.
Oh, that could have been such a big break for some of these drivers who had stayed out. I know they wanted to see the yellow flag, but nothing coming out yet. We've still got trucks rolling around down on the apron. Joseph is down there, as is Marcus Ruckman still. I think those two are going to come in for service, recognizing that they are not going to get the yellow that they wanted. And so no break for a DeMerchant or a Pace or a Quamby Scott or any of these drivers who are now very clearly staying out, trying to catch a yellow and catch the rest of the field off guard.
LePage style from Ruckman. He was coming off the pit lane, merging on the back straightaway, did not look in his mirror. Joseph was there, and Mirror piled into him. Here is the replay. This is a little early, but we'll follow him down in the apron here. So he gets it rolling. And let's see, coming down the back. You see Joseph there on the bottom. He comes up. He has no idea. He's expecting him to go up the racetrack. That's the racing line. And he keeps it pinned down on the bottom. And he almost ramps over the top of the 15 of Marcus Ruckman. Joseph does have a meatball flag. Ruckman does not, but he is still on the pit lane. As Seth DeMerchant is still on the racetrack now. This is his 45th lap. And he is staying out. Larry Pace, Kwame Scott, Logan Clampett, Drew Freinage also staying out right now. They have yet to pit. And Kwame Scott had himself a moment in traffic a little bit ago. As right now, Kwame Scott, Larry Pace, they're looking at having to make it almost 55 laps here without a caution. Pace looking for his second win in a row. Kwame Scott looking for a rebound after a rough start to the night. 22 to go.
We'll see how this works out, but right now, the driver that I think is going to come out the big winner out of these stops, if we stay green, and if he can hold the track position, Christopher Pfeffer. He's got a little bit older tires than everybody else around him by about 4 laps, but he managed to jump in line and is now the second truck, will be third truck here in a moment, just behind this pack that you see on your screen, who came in for tires. And he was running about, 15th or 16th ballpark before he came down to Earth Service. So he was one of the two, along with Chris Wellhite, that decided to split the race in two effectively from that pit stop under yellow around lap 30 and even out the stints. And even though he's got a little bit older rubber, truck still seems like it's in decent shape. If he can hang on to the track position, could be a good night for him.
Here comes Seth DeMerchant, your race leader, lets the drivers behind him know that he is coming to pit road. And he gets it onto pit road safely and does not speed. So the strategy ploy from DeMerchant may not quite shake out. 20 to go here at the line. Larry Pace is your race leader now. He's been out there for 35 laps. He's going to need to go 55 laps here in order to try and make it to the end on fuel. He has a 6-second lead over Kwame Scott, as he is just letting folks by. They're getting back on the lead lap for passing Larry Pace, but Pace has to slow his pace down, no pun intended, to make it on fuel. He's got to get the draft off these trucks as well.
It's going to be really tough, not just because he'll have to catch the draft, but with the damage to the nose of his truck, that will affect your ability to save fuel just the same, and he's going to have to be really tucked up behind somebody as you see Seth DeMerchant come back out on the racetrack behind him in order to make the strategy work.
Brian LaPrade that last time by running a 2.5 of a lap faster than Pace. They are 23 seconds back to Pace right now, that entire group of trucks. If that holds up and they don't fall off enough, they're going to catch Larry Pace, and they are going to eat him alive. There you see Brian LaPrade. He is currently in the 3rd spot. He just got by some of those others that have been trying to stay out, Freinage and Clampett. So Scott and Pace, the only two that are staying out that are still running. LaPrade 16.5 seconds back on Kwame Scott. Scott is 5.5 seconds back on Larry Pace. This time by, they're going to be about a second off of each other as far as lap times. Pace sped it up a little bit. LaPrade lost a little bit of time. If this holds up, Pace may be able to hold on.
But he also has to make it all the way, too. And between the gap maintaining and his ability to stretch fuel out for another almost 20 laps beyond this, there are a lot of variables that have to go his way. Not that it's impossible, but everything basically has to go just right in order for Larry Pace and Kwame Scott to pull this off.
And that involves us staying green all the way to the end. There you see Kwame Scott. He's coming off turn number 2 as Pace enters turn number 3. That's about the difference, is the back straightaway here between first and second. It's a much longer journey back to the rest of the field, and Justin is speculating here that they're going to hit the cliff soon. They're still 20 seconds back with 15 laps to go. Their pace either has to increase exponentially or Larry Pace has to slow down exponentially here if they want to catch him.
Yeah, I was about to say, Justin, let's go to you for a little bit. Explain the cliff on tires that you talk about there.
Well, when you talk about tire wear, it kind of comes in layers where you get the good out of the tires for a few laps and then you slow down and you get that speed for a little bit and then you slow down again. Those are what we like to refer to as cliffs on the tires. I am thinking that Breyer, Daniel, those guys are going to be hitting a cliff here pretty soon. They're still going to be faster. They're going to be outpacing Pace and Kwame. But, I mean, it's going to come down to, I think if Pace can make it on fuel, we don't get a caution here, I think he's sitting really pretty right now.
Only 0.8 faster that last time by. LaPrade was compared to your leader, Larry Pace. This time around, Pace is a little slower. We'll see how LaPrade lines up here, making his way through 3 and 4. Looks like this will be closer to a second as they hit the start-finish line. A 31.119. Pace's last lap, a 32.021. So about 0.9 there. Larry Pace, if he can make it on fuel, could go back-to-back here to start the season. That would be huge as far as points. But right now, he still has 11 laps, make it 12 laps to go for something to go haywire here and knock him out of contention to win. Maybe. We could see everybody come back down on the pit road and take tires, but that's strategy. I would think, and Justin, you would seem to agree that they would pit. They would still have a set of tires in the pit lane. There's no reason for them to not take it if they get a caution to put them in a window for overtime or an inside 10-lap to go shootout.
Purely speculative, but I'd be interested to see how many people took 2 tires. I mean, people will take 4 tires if we do get that late race yellow, because tires are definitely cliff and they're definitely falling off. So I think we would have some people roll the dice here in Vegas.
I like it.
Pace is rolling the dice right now, and it's paying off pretty.
Yeah, because we're at the point here, especially as we've hit the cliff on tires. As you said, Jacob, there's no way that LaPrade and company can make up that gap unless Pace runs out of fuel and has to come down to pit road. So if he can save to the end, he's good at this point. He will, if he's got enough to make it to the end and we don't get a yellow flag, there's no reason as to why Larry Pace should not take the checkered flag tonight. But 10 laps to go. And remember last year when we thought for a long while that Joseph was going to be able to make it, and Matthew Thunhorse came around at the line on the last lap to make this pass. So we are very far from the end of this race.
And Kwame Scott still 5 seconds back. He's just sort of lurking back there. He's not necessarily faster than Pace, but that gap has fluctuated from around 5 to 6 seconds. Now it's getting under that 5 range, and as soon as I say that, Pace pulls away again, and that's because Kwame Scott is coming to pit road. Kwame Scott pulls the plug with 9, make it 8 laps to go. Kwame Scott is going to throw away a second-place finish. May not be able to make it on fuel. Put Brian LaPrade into second. 15 seconds back now on Larry Pace. Has Pace been saving? Can he even make it?
You would think not. It's a 47-lap stint, now 48 laps as he comes across the stripe that he is on. Fuel window normally is 45. We've gotten a yellow flag in the mix there, but I would still think he'd have to have found 3 to 4 laps worth of fuel beyond the yellow flag in order to have a shot at this.
I would think, though, that if Kwame couldn't make it, they were running similar lap times. If Kwame couldn't make it, I don't think Larry Pace can make it. But we'll have to. Here he comes. Larry Pace to pit road with 7 laps to go, coming to 6 to go. We're going to have a fight for the lead. Brian LaPrade and a pack of others off of turn 4. will take over the race lead. LaPrade, Buttafuoco, Nichols, Brady, Alfala, Phillip, Frisch, McCullum, Mercurial, Humpy, your top 10 with 6 laps to go, and it's a ball game now for the lead at the front.
Remember that we talked about Zach Nichols earlier in the night, and he had slid back a lot during the first 20 laps of the initial green flag run and then found pace. Here we are. It's about 25 laps in this stint for everybody else, and Nichols is now in the top 3. I have a strong feeling that suggests he's got a long run truck set up, and that if there's anyone for whom this race might come to in the final 4 laps, Zach Nichols could be that driver looking to the inside of Buttafuoco to try and wrest away the second spot.
And Nichols and Alfala each have 1 lap fresher tires than everybody else up here at the front. That could be a factor as well. Coming to 4 laps to go here from Las Vegas. Brady looks to the outside for third. Not much there. Brian LaPrade maintaining the field. That second group of trucks, though, is coming. Alfala, Phillip, Frisch, all in that pack. They're trying to become one. Alfala, a 10th faster than the leaders that last time by.
This will be very, very big. Alfala trying to run them down. I can see the rear end stepping out on Daniel Buttafuoco's machine. He's losing grip in those tires. I think Nichols and Brady and Alfala at this point might all be faster, but will they have the opportunity to pass Buttafuoco and make a run at LaPrade for the win? That's the question.
3 laps to go. They are running out of time, especially with how difficult it is to pass. You need to have the draft if you want to get by, and right now, Daniel Buttafuoco cannot get to that 17. He looks to the inside, washes up the racetrack, and LaPrade is going to scoot away down the back straightaway by about a trunk length and a half, maybe 2 truck lengths.
But I think that at this point, that's what you have to do. You have to try and run some sort of different lane. Look at Kenny Brady going to the high line to try and clear Zach Nichols, who then immediately comes up top to block. But you have to try something here. If you just sit in the dirty air of the truck in front of you, you're not really going to go anywhere.
2 laps to go here from Las Vegas. Brian LaPrade finished 3rd at Daytona 2 weeks ago. He was so close to making it back to the Coke Series last year. Was relegated to contender. Was just a couple points out from being a part of the eNASCAR the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series last year. This year, rather, white flag in the wind. 1 lap to go for Brian LaPrade.
That's a big send from Buttafuoco. That feels like the last roll of the dice, but he slides up the racetrack, and he may open up the door for Zach Nichols to make a move down the backstretch, but it is all Brian LaPrade from Manchester, Tennessee, coming into turn 3 for the last time.
Brian LaPrade wants to get back to the Coke Series. No better way to do that than to gamble and win in Las Vegas. Brian LaPrade takes the checkered flag and wins the eNASCAR qualifying iRacing Series at Las Vegas in the top split. Max points day for Truck 17. And a big win for Brian LaPrade. 3rd last race at Daytona. Boy, it seemed like 2022 was just a rough year for Briar. 2023, so far, seems to be the year of Brian LaPrade.
And he made the switch to go from Team Lockdown to Ryko in the offseason and work with that group on their setups. And they've definitely had some pace as of late. This is a big, big feather in their cap, as it is his charge to get back to the Coke Series now. Should put him in the points lead, I think, unofficially amongst all drivers in the qualifying series after 2 rounds. A 3rd in the first and top split to start off the season. It doesn't guarantee you a place in round 2, but it certainly makes the road to round 2 racing a whole lot easier.
Yeah, that's what I would think. DeMerchant, who finished 2nd at Daytona, finished 13th tonight, and Pace, your winner from Daytona, he finishes in 29th after pitting there with 5 laps to go. Brian LaPrade, your winner. We take a break. When we come back, we talk with our top 3, get the results, and send you on your merry way here on FTF.GG. Back here from Las Vegas Motor Speedway, take a look at your results here from race number 2 of the eNASCAR qualifying iRacing series from Las Vegas. Brian LaPrade, your winner. Daniel Buttafuoco, pole to second. Zach Nichols, third. Kenny Brady, a good run for him tonight in fourth. Ray Alfala had a rough go of it at Daytona. Big rebound tonight, though. He finishes fifth. Agnell Phillip in sixth. Your top 6, all Chevys. That's Michael P. Frisch breaking up the monotony there in the Toyota in 7th, and Chevy's rounding out the top 10. Brian Mercurio, Kenny Humpy, Alex McCollum rounding it out.
Christopher Pfeffer finished in the 11th spot. Dominic Lukumsky was 12th. Seth DeMerchant brought it home in the 13th spot. Brad Mahar was 14th. Andrew Navarro finishes in the 15th position. It's 16th this evening for Eric Royce. Casey Tucker finishes in the 17th spot. 18th is Royal Fine Boyd Hogan. Clayton Hoffman finished 19th. And James Holzer rounded out the top 20.
21st tonight belonging to Blaze Crawford, Jake Nichols in 22nd, Chris Wilhite 23rd, Dalton Collins 24th, Steele Langford 25th, Kyle Dragon 26th, Joel Smith 27th, Cody Terlindi 28th, Larry Pace tried the fuel strategy game, just didn't quite work for him. He finishes 29th. Eugene Mozganov finishes in 30th. In your final 5, Kwame Scott, another guy trying to make the fuel strategy work. Logan Clampett, Drew Freinage, 2 more guys trying to make fuel strategy work. They finish 1 lap down and out of the race. Joseph 2, and Marcus Ruckman, they had their crash on the apron during green flag pit stop. So why don't we talk with our race winner here, Brian LaPrade. Briar, from the bottom step of the podium 2 weeks ago at Daytona to the top step tonight here at Las Vegas. The strategy worked out for you and, the folks behind you there. Were you worried that Larry Pace potentially could make it there on fuel and you weren't going to catch him, or were you confident that no matter what, the lead was going to come back to you?
I started getting a little worried there once we got within, 10 laps to go. I was like, there's no way these guys make it right, because that would just be my luck, go out and dominate and, people make it on field. But I was thinking, the last caution was before 50, and I think even at the start of the race, if you tried to go 50, there's little to no chance of making it. So just kept my foot in it, thanks to the Ryko Performance Speed. It was absolutely wonderful truck, rocket ship. Just held my foot to the floor at those last 30 laps, and it stuck. So I was worried the tires were going to burn up there, but it worked. But yeah, how about that? We got another Road to Pro win. That's our second. We got one in round 2 last year. We finally got one in round 1 this year. But just got to thank Cameron Ledford and Ryko for all the support. Make sure you check out Ledford Billiard Supply at ledfordbilliardsupply.com. We got Roasted Jim's Coffee and Garza Law Firm on board with us as well this year. So excited to sport some new colors, kind of new colors. But yeah, I'm happy to start off the season, the round 1 at least, with a 3rd and a 1st, so it's pretty cool.
I know 2022 may not have been the easiest for you as far as on sim. Rough go at it through the Coke Series that first year. Seemed like anytime I saw you in a race, bad luck was coming your way. Is this the year of Briar LaPrade? Can we make that official?
I really hope so, man. Last year was tough. I finally made it to the Coke Series, and I was like, man, I made it. And I thought I was going to be in the series for a while, and just had a terrible go at it rookie year, and Contender didn't treat us well either, and we got kicked down to the bottom step of the ladder once again. So I've been here once, and like I said, this is win number 2 in Road to Pro. So the first one I was shaking and just nervous. This one I was getting a little nervous just because I didn't want a yellow to come out, and it didn't come out. So once I got the white, I was calm as can be. Just as long as old Daniel there, him, and Seth were having a good fun battle there and being in the top 3 for majority of the race. But yeah, once we got the white, I was pretty calm and just, like I said, held my foot to the floor, and it stuck because Ryko Performance brought a good truck, and very happy with that entire race. Usually I can sneak one and get a win here and there, but to do what I did in that race, it definitely a confidence booster for sure.
As he said, got kicked down the ladder, trying to climb his way back up. Brian LaPrade, your winner from Las Vegas. Brian, congratulations. We'll see you in 2 weeks from Atlanta.
Thank you, guys.
That's Brian LaPrade. 17 truck P1 tonight. We'll talk with our second place finisher, Daniel Buttafuoco, with James Pike.
Seems like he has success pretty much everywhere he goes, whether or not it's representing Rutgers University as a Scarlet Knight in the eNASCAR College iRacing Series, or here in the eNASCAR Qualifying iRacing Series representing North Force Racing. Daniel Botafuco is second. And Daniel, it looks like you were giving it everything and then some to try and catch Brian LaPrade. What do you feel like was the difference between your two trucks in determining P1 and P2 tonight?
I mean, we were pretty close. We had a really great piece. Everybody at North Force Racing did a great job prepping something for this race, even in qualifying. We got the pole. I think there, once we got just a few pit stops, I think I just made a couple bad calls of adjustments. I think just overall was a bit too free there. I don't know if you could tell. And Pryor looked a little bit more stable up front there. Looked like when he was running in the middle and 1 and 2, when he'd run a little bit above that seam, sometimes cross it, he could just, have good drive off. I think center off is where I was just a little loose. Even in 3 and 4, I just felt a touch too free, which is kind of on me. I think I made an adjustment that may have probably caused that, but nevertheless, he gave it everything I could, did the best I could, and just a big shout out to JD Laird for being on the box spot, and Vince being the crew chief, coming with all the calls, won the pit, putting in all the adjustments. Got a great team, got a great group of guys. Zach did a great job getting third. It's going to be a good year, so I'm just looking forward to it.
I did notice that you did loosen up a little bit, especially in that last run as the race progressed. Do you feel like that was more just the setup, or was that more driving style, mechanical, just driver input, a mixture of the two maybe?
I think it's a combination of everything. Once we had, I think there was that little 10-lap run we had where we all stayed out. I think the heat cycles with the adjustments that I had in it kind of screwed up the way I was driving. So I felt kind of tight before I even pit for that last time. So I kind of was like, oh, loosen up a little bit. And maybe, and I was only smidgen, and it felt kind of free running in traffic. So I think it was a combination of my driving style, wanting to be a little free, but sometimes a little too free is a little too much. This track really didn't change as much as I thought either. I think the way the track goes over time with rubber and just having all those cars on track, I think maybe didn't get as tight as what I thought it would be. But you live and you learn. Ran a great race. Ran better than I did in second split last year. So constantly making improvements. Got a great group of guys, like I said. Just happy we had a good race. Great rebound after Daytona. And go Knights.
And given the way last year played out, how do you feel like your start to this season is indicative of what you learned throughout that 2022 campaign, and how successful you were, even if you didn't quite hit your ultimate goal, to be right there and now to come back and start the way that you have? What kind of message do you feel like that sends about the way you and everybody at North Force is prepared and attacked these first 2 races?
Well, I mean, we didn't make it last year, but if anything, I think that's probably for the better, because it's very stressful when you're getting at this top level. There are a lot of things. It's like you're kind of worried about yourself. Am I doing enough for the team? Am I performing well enough? But I learned after a while, experience. Time will come. It's only my first year doing it, and I have a great group of guys. Have a great support system. With more experience, the results and the craft will come over time, and just overall, just having a great support group is just really what's helped, because man, I was so stressed out last year. I won't lie, I had a couple boom mental moments last year, but I think I'm in a lot better spot, more confident in my ability too, which is really important. And I kind of ran out of things to say, I'm not gonna lie, but just overall I feel very chilled, very relaxed, just more confident what I can do. I feel like I can do it. I have confidence in myself, and it's all thanks to everybody at North Force Racing for sure, and my family, and just everybody who's been a part of the journey coming from heat.
You can see the pace, and now I think a lot of people know that Daniel Botafuco is going to be a force, not just tonight, but throughout this 2023 eNASCAR Qualifying iRacing Series. P2 for the New Jersey native this evening, Jacob Hitz.
We'll talk with our third place finishers. I'll get it right. Zach Nichols. Coming home in third in a really sporty truck tonight in that number 9 Chevrolet. Did you need a caution there to maybe try and shuffle things up at the front, or just the draft tires? What was the blight there to get to the front of the field and get to Breyer?
I mean, I definitely did not want a caution. I was completely content running third, but yeah, we made some adjustments to low fuel, and So that tightened us up, but then we made the adjustments, and then we completely forgot the low fuel. So I was just completely way too loose there at the end to even have anything for the top two. But yeah, it was a blast to come home with a P3.
Looking ahead, a real super speedway, I guess, super speedway version of Atlanta in 2 weeks' time. Different from here at Las Vegas, but also different from what we saw 2 weeks ago at Daytona.
Yeah, I mean, we pretty much have like 3 super speedway tracks. With Las Vegas is wide open, so not looking forward to next week because it's just going to be who can survive. But we're looking forward to race 4.
That may be the first time in a long time that I've heard somebody say I'm looking forward to Texas. But Zach, congratulations on the top 3. Best of luck, and we'll see you in 2 weeks from Atlanta.
Yeah, first off, I'd like to thank everyone at NFR, Daniel, Vince Marsh. They all just... This truck was so fast tonight, and I can't thank them enough for building this rocket ship. And my dad's watching. I'd like to thank him for letting me do this, and you guys for putting on this great broadcast.
That's Zach Nichols, P3 tonight. We will see him hopefully in 2 weeks' time from Atlanta. Well, that went better than I expected, I guess. The cautions threw me. But I thought Larry Pace had that thing won, man. I couldn't believe. When Kwame Scott pitted, I think that was the sign to me that, he ain't going to be able to make it on fuel.
It was always really going to be tough with the numbers. I think that's something that Justin pointed out a million times over in tonight's race and made very clear that you couldn't really make it more than about 47 or 48 laps without a yellow flag. But I thought, we talked at the beginning of the broadcast about this race being a litmus test. And I feel like this race, if you wanted to get a sample of what you can expect in eNASCAR across the board, we had a little bit of everything. We had long green flag runs, we had short runs, we had a few yellows mixed in. If you want, a race that has pretty much everything that you'd see in a typical eNASCAR race, this felt like one of those races. And at the end, we had a really good battle between 2 drivers who are going to be there in the conversation all season long. I have no doubt in my mind, given the experience that they have and the pace that they've shown, not only to start off this season, but in prior seasons. You look at Breyer, you look at Daniel Botafuco, and the history is there. So I'm not shocked to see that those 2 came home first and second at all. I think as you go a little bit further down, you look at some of the names here, now that we have one race in at a real racetrack. Zach Nichols with a fantastic run on that long run race. Kenny Brady, I believe, ended up the hardest charger, 15 positions that he gained tonight. Ray Alfala proving that he can figure out a way to be fast in anything still. And you want to talk about drivers that have a point to prove, this is the first season ever he's not in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. Of course, he wants to get back into the mix. He comes home with the top 5. So, yes, LaPrade and Botafuco are going to be part of the story, but I think over the next few weeks, and especially when we get to Texas, maybe not so much Atlanta, but we'll start to figure out what other drivers are really going to factor into that top 70 and who's going to be a player when we get to round 2 in the summer.
Well, I want to talk about Atlanta for just a moment. Like I said, different than Daytona 2 weeks ago, which is known as a traditional super speedway style race. But it's different here than Las Vegas. We're still doing 100 laps next week at that 1.5 miles in Atlanta. We went to the old version, the bumpy version, last season. We didn't get to run on the new pavement until now. So this is the first time it's being a part of the eNASCAR qualifying iRacing series. Are we going to see another wild card in 2 weeks' time, or are we going to see the guys that always rise up to the top? Are we going to see them hold on and still find a way in 2 weeks?
I think I lean more wild card on that just because people don't really have a big notebook. If you go back even to the official calendar, I think the last time official series were in Atlanta was back in July of last year when they released the track. And even then, I'm not even sure the trucks were there that week. So people really don't have a notebook at all for the qualifying series race there in 2 weeks' time, even less so than the Coke Series race. At least Coke Series drivers, they had officials last summer to play around with that track a little bit. And I got the chance to race it as well. well. And I noticed very particularly that, especially if you're in the draft, at least with the Cup cars, and I would imagine most likely with the trucks as well, in order to really optimize your lap times, you have to lift a little bit through the center of the corner. It's not a 100% flat out full throttle mile and a half track, even with the reconfiguration. So I think it probably leans more towards a Daytona or a Talladega, but I also think that there's just that little extra bit of skill compared to the traditional super speedway restrictor plate races that you're going to have in order to be successful. And maybe we see big time names up at the front, but I think if we get a little bit different, more of a wild card winner, that to me is where I'd probably place my betting money if I were throwing some down on this.
Just have to wait and see, and you'll see that here 2 weeks' time from tonight. We're already in March, so it's going to be a little bit until you see us again from Atlanta. That will be on March the 16th. There's a lot, though, in the meantime coming up here on FTF. The Bar Visuals FTF Cup Series is back on Saturday night for the Provisional Gamble 400K from Las Vegas. That is March 4th, 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern. The Winsdale Gen 4 Challenge 2003 rolls along. They're at The Rock on Sunday. That's March 5th. That's at 8 o'clock p.m. Audubon is back on Monday from Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. That's at 9:15 p.m. on Monday, March the 6th. Blake McCandless, the Underdog Fantasy Series, that begins from California Speedway, the Auto Club Speedway, rather, with the California 550, benefiting Music City Drum Corps. Qualifying is on Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern. The race Wednesday, March 8th, at 8 p.m. Eastern. SimCar takes our place next week from Road America, kicking the season off March 9th, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and we are back again on March 16th, 9 o'clock Eastern, here on FTF.GG from Atlanta. So, for Zach Johnson, our producer, for Justin Melillo down on the pit road, for James Pike alongside me, I'm Jacob Pitts. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in 2 weeks from Hotlanta, Atlanta Super Speedway. We'll see you then.